Welcome, blockheads. It is January 29th, 2025. This is episode 106 of Business on the Block. This week, we're tackling the AI arms race. China has shocked the world and kickstarted an AI arms race that we will explain to you what you don't know about it. Is Microsoft buying TikTok? And will X finally become the everything app that we were promised way back when? This is the latest in AI tech and business innovation. I am joined, as always, this week by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Good morning, everyone in Australia. Good evening, afternoon in the US, UK.
And from Southern United States, Mike Neubauer.
Good afternoon.
All right, so we're going to tackle story number one, which is actually taking us into Conspiracy Corner. DeepSeek's AI shocks the world. Chinese company DeepSeek has released an open source AI model that is faster, better, and cheaper than ChatGPT. This model shows there are different ways to train foundational AI models that can bring the same results at a mere fraction of the cost. This news has sent the U.S. tech and energy stocks tumbling for those watching the stock market. NVIDIA alone has lost $600 billion of value this week. Just for comparison, DeepSeek spent $6 million training their software. OpenAI spent $4 billion. But thoughts on this one? We're going to start with you, Michelle.
Let Mike go. He's already shaking his head.
All right, Mike, lead the convo here. Fill us in.
$6 million is ridiculous. There's no way that it cost them $6 million. Now, they don't have the same rules as far as, open source on their corporations like we would here. But there's absolutely zero chance they spent that little money and came out with a product like this. Now, is it a better product? I mean, yeah, on paper, it looks like it really is. Is it going to break in 2 minutes? Probably. It's made in China, right? So I don't know. I don't know where we derive with all this other than the conspiracy corner, right? Like, so the currency in all of this, I still believe, is data. Whether we choose to accept it or not at this stage, or we just allow these AI tools to continuously invade every single piece of technology that we have in our existence, at some point, the cat will come out of the bag and catch up to everything that's been happening. And our data will once again become a commodity that is openly sourced, traded, and sold on various marketplaces. China now having access to that data in a little bit different construct is a little bit more problematic. Now, we always sort of harped that OpenAI is, it's the bigger snowball and nothing will be able to catch up to it and all these different things. But we've also alluded to that there's an evolutionary AI arms race that has been sort of going on behind the scenes. We've seen some come and some fall. We've seen some come and still continuously evolve. We've seen some that produce black images of George Washington. We've seen variations of all of these technologies all over the place. I think the one thing from the user perspective is, what is the most cost-efficient and simplest solution that I don't have to think and allow this thing to think for me? And if China has accomplished that, then that will be the new OpenAI that we all reference moving forward.
As a quick throwback, I believe when George Washington was black was when they rebranded the thing as Gemini after that. Michelle, what do you think about this? We're wearing conspiracy hats for a reason we'll get into in a moment, but what do we need to know about DeepSeek and their OpenAI challenge?
Hang on, you mean George Washington wasn't black, right? Is that right?
He was until Donald Trump became president. No, so...
look, we talked about it briefly before we came on the show today. Like on this week on my LinkedIn, I don't know about you guys, but on my LinkedIn this week, I have seen no other stories, like absolutely none, other than DeepSeek, what it means for OpenAI, people talking about, the tug of war that's going to go on, people talking about, what they can do, what they can't do. Spread amongst all of that is, the LLM AI bros who, now within apparently 3 hours of DeepSeek coming out, have added it to their, modules for their course that you need to buy for $9.95 a month. So you know, obviously the AI wrote the module for them, because otherwise how would they have done it so quickly? I think one of the things that struck me was, if we remember back to my 2024 predictions, which I did not get right, was that I said a new competitor for OpenAI will come out and it will, you know, run and be, you know, the best thing since sliced bread or whatever. And so I guess I was a year too early. I mean, we kind of predict the future on this show. Maybe we actually need to have, you know, you know, the balls that the genies and the, you know, the predictor people have, you know, I can't even remember what they're called.
It's because we got the aluminum foil. That's why.
Yeah. That's probably it. So, you know, this was going to happen at some point. Have to say that I didn't necessarily think it would be China that would do it, but now that it's happened, kind of makes sense.
My thoughts are, of course, it would be China. This is a long history of the Americans innovating and the Chinese improving. Right? The Japanese did this to us as well in the 80s. Go ahead.
Stealing.
You can call it stealing. I mean, there's definitely an argument. I have three thoughts on this. Number one, clearly, immediately, there's broader applications for AI now when it's literally free. Number two, this is really the Sputnik moment for those who know the space race in the 60s, the AI Cold War between China and the US. It is hot now. Like, it's not just an interesting development in technology, whose thing does what. This is about military warfare and dominance of the globe and eventually reserve currency of the world. Like, there's broader geopolitical implications than just who's making, whether NVIDIA's chips are needed. And finally, this follows the U.S. had just announced a $100 billion investment in data centers that now aren't going to be needed, it seems. So the entire business landscape is going to be thrown into disarray. Their energy needs, you do or you don't need nuclear power. Talk to Google, talk to Amazon. Microsoft bought 3 Mile Island. Maybe they wasted their money. Like, this is the implications downstream is what I'm getting at. I really think that it's true, Mike. They did steal it. They don't think they could have trained this thing without it having been the basis of what OpenAI built. But yet, here it is. Genie's out of the bottle. Now the code is out there. Everyone knows how to do it. Companies like Amazon and Google have other businesses and are trying to build an AI. OpenAI is nothing else. This is their only evaluation. That's my thought.
And I think, you know, one of the things that I think is not coincidental, I mean, there was a lot of talk from President Trump when he was president-elect about China, about tariffs, about, you know, digging the knife in, basically. Now, he's been president for, I think today is what, 9 days, 8 days, 9 days. It is no coincidence, I don't think, and hence the reason why we have the conspiracy hats on. I don't think it's any coincidence that this has come out now and not at the end of last year.
This is the vaccine coming out after the last election, right? Oh, surprise, we've had this, but now that, you know, it's different, we're gonna introduce it here. Look, I'm not, and we are still in conspiracy corner, so I'm allowed to say this without getting in trouble. But there is a possibility, in my opinion, that this is still very much a cardboard cutout being, you know, put in the stadium and saying the stadium is packed, right? I don't know if this is entirely, you know, this greatest thing since ever, you know, as what it's being perceived as. The thing that I think everybody's flipping out about is really whether the way the stock market is reacting to it, right? So if the tech companies are tanking because they, you know, the perception anyway is that the public can think that this type of technology can be created quickly and inexpensively and more efficient to run, then it puts to bed all of the, you know, energy needs and fundraising conversations that we had about how this technology needs to evolve on past episodes. Again, I feel like that is very much smoke and mirrors. I find it very difficult to believe that, you know, they made this happen in 9 days. But, you know, Michelle, you touched on the way back when machine. I'm going to touch on it as well. When this thing first came out, I explicitly said, and I remember exactly where I said it. I was outside. I wasn't in my office during that show. I was outside. And I said explicitly then, I will be impressed when ChatGPT 4 creates ChatGPT 5.
I remember.
And I think this is sort of an example, a made in China example of how that could potentially operate. I don't know, again, if it's as lucrative as something like OpenAI. I wouldn't trust my business information, personal data. I wouldn't ask it anything relative to something that I would be fearful on what data gets mined from it, at least from the front end. But, you know, if this is a recipe that somebody in the US can actually steal back and perfect and make better, then here we go with the back and forth ping pong game of this evolutionary arms race you're talking about.
So, Mike, to that point, the software developer Hugging Face has already been doing that. They are taking the software insights from R1, the DeepSeek's model, and trying to reverse engineer an American version of this free open source thing. So OpenAI's business model is basically being splayed out for the whole world to steal right now.
I find it interesting in the name too, right? I mean, you know, could this be a deep fake?
Well, that thing, it crashed, right? Didn't it? Went down, was it yesterday? And there was all types of thoughts around, okay, this thing it could be a farce. The whole thing might not be true. But the early reports are that it does deliver.
I'm sure it does. But again, you know, you buy a little trinket from China, it delivers for the first day as well, right?
Yeah.
And before you know it, day 5, your picture's falling off the wall because the
or
hook
a week, maybe.
the hook is bent. So I'm not giving it the credit it deserves, or at least it's getting now, until I start seeing a more longer term data set, different types of applications. Look, one of the things that we like or we hate OpenAI, people have been able to sort of repurpose that for their own branding. They've been able to repurpose that for other marketplaces and specify some of the code in order to, you know, look up something specific in the publishing world or in the content creator world. Like, you know, people have been able to adjust it so that it fits to their business needs and their target audience, all the while, again, still not 100% secure on where the data lives, but knowing that it doesn't end up in the Chinese hands either.
I think that the brand establishment isn't there yet for OpenAI. I worry about Chat. What ChatGPT is great, but if this isn't Apple.
No. And, you know, like one of the things I think is worth talking about is Mike touched on it before about the stock market in the US has gone through the floor in the last 24 hours, 36 hours, because of this. One of the things I think that's been interesting to watch, and we've talked about it, the insane amounts of money that have been put into ChatGPT, OpenAI, and the children or the grandchildren of it over the past 15, 18 months. And I think it talks about the US-centric nature of how people, you know, someone not being in America, I can say to you, we look at the stuff that happens in the US, and, you know, the US is the center of the world in your eyes. It isn't for the rest of us, but it is in your eyes. And so I think that the money that was put in and the non-cautionary tale about how much it just got bigger and bigger and bigger to insane amounts of money really quickly, then suddenly, whether or not it turns out to be true, fake, or otherwise, everyone's gone, oh my God, there's actually a competitor that isn't within our system that we can control. And then everyone shits themselves, basically, and the market tanks. So I think it's really important to think about, we knew, didn't we? And we've talked about it many times, the hyperinflationary nature of the money that has been put into this sector in the stock market or in investments within companies was ridiculous, like more than it should ever have been. And now it's a little bit of a reality check.
Yeah. The stock market decimation, by the way, has recovering slowly, but it is a long-lasting impact here. There's a lot of companies now that have to change their business models. All those GPT wrappers that we knew, these little firms, the creator economy will probably benefit from this. I think the AI development that's going to happen on the back end, meaning companies that wouldn't have had access and now have a full-on better model for free, it accelerates. And we were already in a fast accelerating situation in the tech world. This accelerates that even more if that's possible.
So I'm going to take the conversation and I'm going to move it away from giving a crap about what the company's doing. I'm going to bring it back down to the regular business people, right? Like, how could they benefit from this and utilize something like this? Again, the concept of utilizing the technology is there. Now, okay, we all know how to drive the car now, but now we have a different car to choose from, right? So again, I think from a local business, and how is this going to impact me? I don't care if Microsoft or Google buys another power plant just to do something that's apparently outdated. That means nothing to me. What I care about is, how can I use this for my business to make my business more efficient? And again, if it's more cost efficient for me to operate and it's easier as far as the interface goes, this is a no-brainer, right? Because again, I want the app that makes my business waffles, because I have to take those waffles and sell it to my customer. So I don't need to sit here and kiss Altman's ass and figure out ways to make OpenAI better when this other platform potentially exists that I can leverage right now.
So, Mike, I want to address that. The smaller businesses, and these are the ones that we really care about in this program, and the people who follow us generally are running their own little thing. These companies have to change how they do business because AI-driven everything is now the way forward. It was always going to be, but this accelerates, as I said. So, for example, in my world of content strategy, entrepreneur training, et cetera, these folks have to now have an AI angle on what they're building. What is the AI content ideation, AI content strategy, AI content repurposing? Like, you can put AI in front of everything that you're normally doing, and you have no excuse not to learn it. So there's a learning curve in how do you apply what you were normally doing in a world where the AI tool can make it better. Again, that was always the case, but this is now accelerated.
You used to send out invoices in the mail. Now you email them. You know,
Right.
Companies adopt, right? Like they get to that point. And again, the technology has not just been there, you know, cherry picked by certain people. They've literally infused this in everything we own. Our phones, our messaging apps, our emails, our web browsers. You can't open anything now, technologically speaking, maybe with the exception of this show, and not have an AI bot pop out of nowhere saying, hey, I can do this thing and I can do it better for you. Now, I don't interact with those, but I'm pretty sure at some point I will, because I'm busy with something else. Let me just see what it can come up with. And then I'll be pleasantly surprised or pissed off that I gave in, you know. But the point is that it's there. It's always accessible to you, right? So if I have tedious work that I know is a time suck for my day, for my clients, and I'm not able to monetize properly because of the amount of time that service is allocated, and I find a different tool in the AI world that helps expedite that, that's me as a businessman making more efficient decisions on the operational infrastructure and how I can properly run my organization.
So, Mike, let me check that I've understood what you've said correctly. Says the AI business on the block.
You are AI. I knew it.
That's all I was going to say. Actually, it wasn't going to.
So, Mike, here's my point. And I've mentioned this before in this program. We're heading towards agentic workflows. These companies, this is the Klarna conversation from last week. These companies now have no choice but to learn, I need to be able to reconvene my company, like to restructure it, to reimagine it. I have a node of agents that are going to operate as the finance team. I have a node of agents that will help me with my content creation and posting. I have a node of agents that are going to do the billing. This is what we're going to see this happen sooner rather than later, because it's literally free. And there's a lot of people who are motivated, smart folks who want to make money. And this is a way to do so. This isn't on this program today, but we discussed privately, for those who aren't aware, the little AI that was crypto trading and is now a multimillionaire. Like there's stuff happening in a world being driven by AI that companies that don't know how to use the tools, is what I'm getting at, are at a disadvantage. It used to be a good idea to learn it. Now we've hit the point as of last week where you're in a window of time where you don't know how to do it. You're going to be out of business. I think we're hitting a separation point.
It's a tool like anything else, man. If you don't know how to use a hammer, you're going to try to saw a piece of wood, right? Like, you know, it's if you can treat it like a tool, which we've said, at least I've been singing from that soapbox ever since this toothpaste left the tube. If it becomes a replacement mechanism, it is destined to fail, right? Because again, now you're putting all your eggs in this basket on a system that you don't necessarily understand, other than how to turn it on and turn it off. right? You're going to have your prompt engineers and all these, crazy things that come out of nowhere. But what happens when there's a power outage and you still need to produce your product? What happens when, there's a system malfunction or a power grid failure and you still have to do something in order to, fulfill an obligation with a contract on a client? Like, these are all things that people are thinking about. They're skeptical on even joining in. I mean, again, this is history repeating itself, man. I know that if I put a letter in the mail with a stamp on it, you'll get it at some point. But if I put it in this weird electronic format and I hit send, like, there's no guarantee you're going to get it. It could end up in your spam. Somebody could hack your emails. Like, these were all thoughts in the before machine, right? We all had those issues, especially in business, because the way that we grew accustomed to doing certain things is the way that we felt comfortable to ensure that our business lives tomorrow.
One point to counter that, though, Mike, I think that the stakes are higher. Like I said, it's not that it's a good idea to learn it. I do think you're going to see a displacement that we've never seen before. China just made it literally inexcusable for you to not be putting AI into your business. Number two, I think a lot of these creative uses that are going to go beyond just tasks. Like, you're going to now have this. I already view my OpenAI thing as a partner, a strategic thinker with me. So you're going to have companies that are going to iterate and ideate on what they're already doing. But I think the downstream loser for this is OpenAI. I think they get the credit.
It's very possible. It's very possible, unless
they're going to have to come up with a new business model. Yeah. So anyway,
I mean, one of the things I think that is OpenAI are going to have to do really quickly is look at how much money they spend. I mean, we've looked at this. $7 billion a month or something, wasn't it? Ridiculous. Just from a general, forget about what they do point of view, let's think about a general way in which, say Coca-Cola might have been the only drink around and suddenly Pepsi comes on the scene. So even though they might only lose 20% or 30% of their market share, that's still 30% less than they had last week when there was no Pepsi, as an example. So in this case, OpenAI are the same. So therefore, Coke might have to have, let people go or speed up their process or make it cheaper by ingredients or whatever. OpenAI are in that position now. It's been very beneficial for them and their ego and their money-raising machine to be, we're the only ones, we're the best, we're this, we're that, give us your money. And everyone's gone, here it is, how much more do you want? Now, people might go, hang on a minute, there is an opportunity for someone to be a competitor. Whether this pans out or not is probably a bit irrelevant to, I would imagine, they would be having 300 chat GPTs try and work out how they can, resolve this conflict that they now have with the justification of spending $7 billion a month on running this business that might not be the winner of the AI arms race within a year or two.
If the loser is going to be OpenAI, I would say the winner, believe it or not, is either going to be Grok. Elon Musk can now catch up tomorrow, whereas he couldn't steal the code base from Sam, he can steal it from the R1 model, and he's right there now. Or the average solopreneur, the small creator economy guy or girl who's doing their thing, you can now challenge because you've got access to free, endless amounts of employee knowledge.
But you don't have the budget required as well. And I think that's still yet to be determined on where all this plays out. Every week for like a month straight last year, we talked about how much money OpenAI has, followed by how much money they need, followed by how much money they have, followed by how much money they need. It's very possible that this was the biggest grift known to man, right? You got your hat in one hand 1 week, and then the next week, Sam's driving in a $500 million car. So, again, it's still extremely early. I hope that in a way this helps benefit businesses on the efficiency side, but not as a replacement. I don't want to see these things start replacing accounting firms, accounting companies, accounting divisions, sales teams, marketing teams. I still feel like we are not at a place where this is reliable enough for a business to take that leap yet. And I will give my professional opinion as an operational consultant, saying you need to understand the tool. You need to understand how the tool operates and how it links to not only your industry, but what your goals are for your particular business in order to maximize its value. And if there's still somebody in place that provides that value, that person deserves and should remain in that position for your business, for the benefit of your business.
I may be biased. Go ahead, Michelle. I want to hear yours.
I was going to say, do we need, how many weeks before we have a story where we talk about needing an AI agent to supervise your AI agents?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we are calling conspiracy.
You know, like if they're sending out your, you know, they're calculating your invoices and sending them out and, you know, reconciling your books because the bank account and blah, blah, blah. Like who's looking at that to check that it's actually right? Like, I don't know.
Right. So the one big, go ahead, Mike.
No, you know, I was just thinking we are in conspiracy corner and we're talking about arms races and countries now and who's going to win this race and all this. Like, what if this is the new style of war, right? You're not killing people, you're killing the other country's AI version, which controls almost everything.
Yeah.
It becomes a video game.
Mike, in the history books, it's called degrading your enemy's war-making capacity.
Yes.
But it becomes a video game, right? It becomes an entire game of civilization where you are, you know, decommissioning their ability to communicate. You're decommissioning their information sources. And in turn, you gain power that way. So once again, I think everything down to its fundamental nickels and dimes root of where the value sits, it all sits with the data that it is accumulating on everybody. Whether it's helping people out or not, it lives somewhere. The information lives somewhere. Now, yesterday I was asking ChatGPT some questions relative to a particular topic, and I had already brought up that topic in another chat. So I asked it, is it possible for you to reference the other chat instead of me retyping all this information into a new chat window? And its response was, we cannot get specific details from a former chat, but we are trained based on the information that you put in that chat in order to provide a more lucrative answer that fits your needs. So that tells me that it's learning something and it's evolving based around all input, which means that the data is still mined and stored and then repurposed somehow.
So I have a similar story here, Mike. Today, I have a humongous strategy window that I work with on my ChatGPT, and I opened up a different window for something else. And when I was asking a series of questions that related to the other window, it knew things it shouldn't have from the only window I was in with it versus the one historically. So it didn't reference specific data, but the answer was tailored for that other window's angle. And I was like, can't be coincidence.
No.
Well, I've asked my ChatGPT, I've said, taking all of the information you provided me in the window titled blah, 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 now write this based on this premise instead of that one, and it does it. It has done it.
Specific details and everything?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you know the data's in there, Mike.
Go and look and do it. Like, pull it into this rather than, you know, like all that stuff. I think, I mean, we're probably almost at the end of talking about this story, but one of the things I think we need to think about, and I think will come up eventually, and it might not be in the immediate future, and it might take I'm hoping not a catastrophic event, but it might take something that happens that wasn't meant to happen. I think that there is going to have to be governments siloing certain things. Now, in the US or whatever, it might be the nuclear code section, where AI never goes anywhere near any of that particular thing, for example. I think that we're going to get to a point where, when, you know, in the beginning, governments are going, yay, we can have it, it can do this and it can do that and do that. Something will happen that wasn't meant to happen. And then countries around the world will go, well, yeah, it can reference all of that, but this bit here, we need to padlock it, silo it away from the AI stuff.
So yesterday in the United States, the OpenAI team introduced ChatGPT Gov. Gov, specifically because the U.S. government agents, all these agencies, the various bodies of the United States government, have been accessing ChatGPT unofficially but officially. And so in order to safeguard the United States' information, ChatGPT is creating this new custom whatever as a product for the government. So to your point, though, Michelle, that's never going to happen in terms of I'm only going to be like all the nuclear codes are going to be safely locked in this little, not in the digital world. I wish, but that's not how it works. The last item I want to go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, I think it's important that we keep talking about this as much as we have to, because it is an extremely important, piece this week, right? So even the other stories that we have lined up, they sort of align with this anyway. So I think with the nuclear codes and with things like that, again, we are dangerously embedding this technology on everything that we own, right? So, even though it's written on a piece of paper, maybe the way that you look at it is now analyzed by some camera that is, triggered with some sort of an AI mechanism that can figure out or predict what that code is based around your body movements. Like, we're living in this dangerous world where the information doesn't need to be properly imported. All it has to do is be an accurate predictor of human behavior. And I think that is really AGI when you really want to boil it down. That's what we, that's when we know we've achieved that, is that when it can predict our behaviors, our thought process, read our minds unofficially, quote unquote, and provide us with either information or manipulate information so that we digest it and accept it as the truth.
Mike, we're already there.
What about the quantum chip that we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
Mark, we're not there because it's not the app yet.
Right? Well, go ahead.
We're not there because it's still not the app yet. You ask 10 people on the street, hey, did you use ChatGPT today? Maybe 6 will say yes. Maybe.
I agree with that, but the capability is there when, God, even before AI, regular old algorithms were serving you up on the channels what you wanted to see next.
Correct, but you were still giving into that, right? You were still feeding into that channel. If people are not using the system, it cannot collect the data in order to provide a proper output.
So
those people on the street aren't the ones using it, though. The Thanoses of the world are the ones using it. That's the problem.
The popular GPT meme joke right now, for those on the internet, is get with your LLM and ask it to tell me something about myself that I wouldn't even know about myself. And it's spot on.
You can ask Grok to roast you, and it goes through your Twitter history and it writes an actual roast saying you're interested in this, you did that, I deleted all my Twitter shit last night. Like it freaked me out. I know it doesn't matter, but like it references all of your tweets. It references everything you liked, everything you engaged with. Again, it's data, right? It's an entire data library. And frankly, I disagree on the energy side. This data needs to be stored and accessed in some way, shape, or form. And we haven't figured out the energy solution other than what's currently there yet. So that's still going to be a very viable market as this technology is evolving at lightning speed, whether it's, quantum computing, whether it's nuclear energy, whatever it is. Hell, China can use coal. They have enough coal facilities there anyway.
Mike, this planet produces enough food to feed everyone.
Fact. It does.
And yet, how many people go to bed hungry every night? The food doesn't get distributed as it should. And so my point is, yes, the world should be this way, but the world actually is this way. And we're going to find the same to be the case with data protection.
And this is the Thanos argument that Michelle brought up, right? Like, we're not going to truly understand the risks until the black eye starts to form.
I agree with you. I'm human too here, Fal. I agree.
We've seen this story and same song and dance on episodes 1 through 50 when we were talking about NFTs. Right. So, it was a great technology. We all understand the upside, but all it takes is a couple bad actors to do something they shouldn't be doing before everybody freaks out. The stock market sells off because they don't trust how it's going to play out. And, boom, all of a sudden, nobody trusts it anymore.
Before I move us to the other segments, I want to tie this back down to earth here for the regular folks, just normal small businesses out there and what they should be doing. In this world of advancing AI, and even despite all the geopolitics we just mentioned, the number one thing people should be doing right now, in my opinion, is building their personal brand. And here's why. The relationship at the end of the day determines the business. And in an AI push button, copy everything world, it's I want to give my money to Mike or Michelle or whomever. That's where the world we're heading into. And so who you are matters. All right. Final comments on that, and we'll move on. We're gonna take off our little tinfoil here, as I'll take us into story number 2. Microsoft in talks to buy TikTok. Yes, Microsoft is rumored to be discussing with TikTok an acquisition. This is according to Bloomberg. Both Microsoft and ByteDance have declined to comment officially. Potential names linked with the buying of TikTok as of today include Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and Mr. Beast, who's been apparently has some financial backers. So thoughts on this one? Michelle, we'll start with you. It seems close to the content world. What do we think about Microsoft and TikTok?
I think I laughed and like you did just then when I read the Mr. Beast reference. I actually think that would provide us with so much fodder for the next 2 years of stories on this show, that I think that's the one I'm voting for, Mr. Beast.
He
but
would
as
definitely
you
know.
said,
He'd know what to do with it.
Backers. Yeah, exactly. We know that something has to be done. We know that President Trump is, last presidential term 8 years ago, he wanted to get rid of TikTok altogether. TikTok assisted greatly in his re-election. And if you believe the stories, it's partly because of his son, his 18-year-old son, Barron, who said, "You've got to be on TikTok, Dad." And look what happened. So he got elected. So he obviously now is a convert to that. But there's still unease in the US about the fact that it is China-owned. And it's kind of a little bit, doesn't it? It ties really well, I think, into the first story about the data that they collect on people everywhere, because I would imagine that the uptake of AI usage in the US and now TikTok in the US are probably, similar numbers in terms of percentages, and the Chinese government are collecting lots of information. Obviously all over the world, but you know what I mean? Like I think that there's a parallel there in terms of
Totally agree.
them coming out with the AI and the information that they collect from TikTok and what they do with it.
Interesting to see where it goes. Mike, do you think Microsoft ends up owning TikTok?
I mean, I don't know. I don't care.
I was about to say, do you care?
I really don't care if they own TikTok, because that's a scenario of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Right. You got one data miner, that has a risk to the world, giving it to another data miner that has a bigger risk to the world, arguably.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to sit here and relitigate the conversations we've had over the last couple of weeks with respect to TikTok and the sale. And, does it belong in China's hands? Does it belong in, some vetted or unfamiliar or untrustworthy US company? But the fact that it is US, like, I don't want to go down that route. I find it extremely ironic that this story surfaces the same week as this, DeepSeek is released, because who is OpenAI's number one investor?
Microsoft.
Okay. Well, don't you think this is like an exit ramp that they're looking for to potentially, spread their wings a little differently now, because their investment might not, play itself out? I mean, it's not a conspiracy. It's got to be like a legit reason.
We're lacking facts, so it is conspiracy technically. However, Mike, I'm going to go a slightly different angle. I don't disagree with you, but the beneficiary in my mind is going to be Elon Musk. And here's why. People don't realize that Microsoft owns a social media platform already. What is it?
Facebook.
LinkedIn.
Oh, sorry, LinkedIn. Sorry.
Microsoft and LinkedIn. How do they digest TikTok? Like, how do you incorporate? Why do you even need it? And so I can see, if you want to make the everything app, Elon Musk's X, I can see them doing a thing especially with his close relationship with Donald Trump. Now that's conspiracy, but meanwhile, it makes business sense. That's my thought.
Well, I mean, if you read the story, Nadella from Microsoft, he said it's the strangest thing that he's ever worked on. So, I mean, that. They must really be scratching their heads over there about, as you said, it probably is no coincidence, Mike, that it came out in the same week. But I think they're pulling a lot of hours in the office for some of these companies this week with all of this stuff that's going on.
Did we talk about the conspiracy around the outage for the 12 hours they were down and then they came back and people said the algo works differently? We mentioned this last week, right?
Oh, I didn't know the algo worked differently.
So there's a lot of people who use TikTok regularly who say the algorithm is functioning differently since TikTok came back online after having been dark. And so the conspiracy theorists are having a ball with, they must have already transferred it to American servers. It's being run by Oracle, ByteDance at this point. None of that is.
But you should be able to source that code back in order to see where that leads to, though.
The CCP.
Yeah, well, again, if that's the case, then it's not on Oracle. But, you bring up LinkedIn as a reference, and it made me think right away. I mean, we did a segment here not too long ago about how, the whole purpose of LinkedIn has actually shifted to places like TikTok. You have your interviews, you have your resumes, you have your job hunters and your seekers that are sort of leveraging that particular platform because that's where people are. They're not on the LinkedIn, and they tried to turn LinkedIn into something, and it didn't really pan out the way they wanted it to. I mean, I don't know why they couldn't just leave it alone and let it be the business recruitment tool. But yeah, I get it. There's money involved, but I mean, again, you don't need to be everything to everybody. Dr. Pepper still exists for a reason. They didn't want to be number one. They knew their role, and they knew that they had a particular market share that they didn't necessarily find a problem with just living in.
So Dr. Pepper couldn't be number one, and so they had to settle for number 4.
I think that was part of their business model the entire time, because they knew that their operational expenses we talked about this, like their operational expenses would not necessarily be as high as a Coke or Pepsi because they could leverage their operation mechanics in order to make their product. But they knew the trade-off was they would never be number 1 or number 2. And frankly, again, you pull 10 people, maybe 6 are okay with Dr. Pepper. The others thinks it tastes like, it just tickles their nose or something. But bottom line is, with respect to Microsoft acquiring TikTok, they need to show some face to shareholders, especially now with the way this AI, game has sort of evolved. And if this is an opportunity to start recouping some of that funds by investing more, I mean, is it good money thrown after bad? I don't know. But I mean, that's going to be up to the shareholders to make that decision.
I mean, if you look at the story, it also tells you that in 2020, Microsoft were supposedly the top bidder for TikTok when the sale was talked about then. So that's 5 years ago, and we're still talking about this, and it still hasn't happened yet. I mean, I think that this is one of the things that surely AI is going to solve, is that the wheels of government anywhere, not just in America, the wheels of government grind so damn slowly.
Not in Australia.
Ridiculous. In Australia too. That it's just ridiculous. And so, if something good with AI comes out, let's hope it is that government can actually do things a bit quicker.
They should think about like a Department of Government Efficiency, right, Mike?
I think they have that. And I think it has a token too. President AI may exist in our lifetime in some way, shape, or form. Not here, but maybe one country will implement it.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, maybe it'll be in Fortnite.
Maybe.
Or in the metaverse.
Right.
Remember that? We haven't talked about the metaverse for how many episodes?
Yeah, you know why? Because it lives on threads. That's why.
I'm taking us into story number 3. X has signed a payments deal with Visa. Visa and X are partnering to offer direct payment solutions to X platform's customers. The X Money account will allow customers to instantly fund their X wallet and connect their debit cards. And so now it enables peer-to-peer payments directly through X. Thoughts around this, Mike? This seems closer to our Web3 roots.
Well, I told you at the beginning, this is going to be the China show. And this is just another example of, repurposing something that we found from that particular app or that particular country. China has this already. It's called WeChat. WeChat is the everything app in China. People can pay their mortgage. They could pay their cars. They could buy their groceries. They can go into retail. They can send money to friends. They could buy something online. It is that everything app that allows them to live their day-to-day existence simply by opening it up and making waffles on that app on their phone. Elon has been very specific about wanting to make that happen with X. My hope in seeing an article like this is that this is the bridge to moving it into crypto as well. And I know that MasterCard, Visa have already dipped their toes in that world. They sort of understand how it works. They understand the risks at play. But I feel like if this everything app does become more, digitized and more accessible, we're going to see a world where crypto becomes a little bit more engaged. And if he could figure out a way to make X have those crypto transactions, everything we've said for 106 episodes now on this show becomes gospel truth. It becomes actual, it becomes a validated prediction that we made every step of the way here.
I like to think it's already gospel truth. Michelle, what do you think about this?
That's what I tell myself in the mornings.
Look, I think that it's going to happen eventually too. I would like to think that there will be more options than just Elon's everything app, because I can imagine right now that there are a lot of players looking to see what he does, how he does it, and what the uptake is and whether people embrace it. As soon as they do, someone will get their AI agent to create one for them. And so, there'll be, just like there's Visa and MasterCard and Diners and Amex, there will be others that will be similar to this. Obviously, like how much Elon takes from the WeChat, I don't know. But I agree with Mike. I think that this will lead to one of my predictions about having a crypto wallet come hardwired into an Apple iPhone or a Google Pixel or whatever eventually. If not this year, then perhaps next year, if he gets this off the ground. We do know, and just to reiterate a point that Mike made, Visa and MasterCard have patents within blockchain and Web3 and crypto. So they already own the patents for several years now, 3, 4, maybe 5 years. So they are quietly waiting for something like this before they can move on it.
I agree with you, Michelle. I think on the good side of things, I believe Musk has made it clear this is what he wants. I would never bet against that guy. I think if anyone is going to make it happen, it would be him. So yes, this is the stars align there. However, I don't have my tinfoil on, but if you could do one app to do everything in your life and pay everything through, don't you think the U.S. government would love to be able to see that? And so my concern would be, is this a decentralized thing? Clearly, probably not at the end of the day. Or is this just a blockchain managed by the government? And that makes me a little concerned.
I think that his history has shown that he's really about free speech. He doesn't want the government control over anything, particularly his own app. So I think he would push back pretty hard. I don't care who's in the office. He would definitely make sure that stays protected. Because again, like it's not about him making money. I don't think it's possible that he cares about making any more money. I think he just really wants to take whatever he's been able to succeed with and continuously evolve some of these new ventures, whether it's going to Mars, whether it's building an additional element on the moon, getting Starlink all over the world so internet fees go down and, they're just become non-existent at that point. It just becomes a water bill basically at that point. So I don't know if he'll allow the government control. Now, you're right. It is, again, data, and everybody wants the data. So including governments, in order to sit there and try to control. But if you think back again, when Facebook really started, when Facebook was at its peak and its absolute mecca, can't you argue it was the everything app?
You couldn't pay your mortgage through it.
I mean, yes, but you can interact with transactions.
That's true. That's true. I think we're all taking a step towards that direction with TikTok Shop and Instagram Shop and all these online in-app shopping things.
Well, that in Facebook, again, was, I don't want to say they were the first because I can't validate that, but I think they were definitely one of the bigger platforms to integrate that capability. Integrating your website store into Facebook. Again, a lot of behind the scenes code with respect to pixelation and all these different things that, tools that Facebook came out with that are easily one of the most intuitive marketing tools to ever be created, but also the most invasive. Like, not derailing the conversation, can he create that everything app? Yes. Will it be acceptable to people, and will it prevent a free market from evolving? I don't know. Again, I look at something like this too, and I think of Wally, and we're all sitting there in those chairs from the big Globo corporation who controls everything. And if I want to watch a movie, Globo has access to that. If I want to order food, Globo has access to that. Like, we see multiple entities that have these various, branches of services, Amazon being one of them. But is it going to be one that just controls all? I don't even know if Elon wants that.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I had a friend, with all the controversy just before the inauguration around Elon, I had a friend say to me, wouldn't it be nice to have so much money that you can do or say or be anything you want with no consequences because you have so much money?
Yes and no. So, I'm sorry, continue your thought.
No, I was going to say, and he's now co-chair, is it, or whatever it is, head of this Department of Government Efficiency. I agree with Mike about what, Elon's made it pretty clear he's about less government involvement in people's lives than more. And therefore this, that him having that position will pave the way for him to be able to do something like this further down the track.
I agree with that. I was going to say that these guys can do whatever they want when they have the money, but then eventually need the power, the political power. And he's affiliated with
getting that now.
Right. So I'm not going to say he doesn't have it, but he's also an appointee at this point. So it's limited. My point is, I think that the math on the business end of this makes sense. I think an everything app would be in the interest of the government. It would be interest of the users, and it would be in the interest of Elon Musk for sure. So yes, I think this will happen. I don't think it's going to be as smooth or as quick as we think, though. And whether or not he ends up inheriting TikTok or whatnot, this is a heavy technology build is required to make this thing work.
And I think, again, he's very capable of doing that, especially now, as we pointed out from story number 1, to link all this together. If he has an element where he doesn't necessarily need to figure it out himself, and he can rely on some sort of an open sourced AI model that he can run countless calculations through in order to figure out the formula that would work for what he's looking to do, I think that accelerates what his capabilities are at this point.
It's made in China, Mike. It'll seize up after the second window run.
I'm with you. And again, that's my argument. He still has that sticker at the bottom.
I'm going to run us through what we hit today. I'm going to get the thoughts on what was the key points that we need to remember, what's going to help these folks the most. Story number 1, DeepSeek's AI shocked the world. DeepSeek had released a new version of OpenAI, basically, that's better. You had Microsoft in talks to buy TikTok, rumored, and X X does sign a payments deal with Visa, so you can debit card through your X wallet. What is the key takeaway, Michelle? We're going to start with you. What do you think was the most important story we hit, and why?
So, I mean, I think that they're all important, but one of the things I have been thinking more about, if you are a small business owner and you have been scared or hesitant, or you're not sure how AI can help you in your business, you need to really start now to look at what's around and what's available and what can help you with. And I think that part of the problem with that is that there's a lot of small businesses that do things that they don't know how they do it, just in general terms of system, being able to have systems set up. If you don't have systems set up in your business, then AI is going to have a difficult time helping you. But if you have systems, you would be able to slot in an AI program or an app that will actually increase the speed in which you can operate within that system. So have a look at that. I think that that's a really important thing. And we are going to be talking about this DeepSeek, deepfake, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Gemini, you name Grok, for, as I said a few weeks ago at the beginning of the year, when we did our prediction. So I think that we're going to be able to have every episode for the next couple of years on OpenAI and
I think that's good advice.
and everything.
Your insights on systemizing, Michelle, is valid. Mike, what do you think? What's the most important story this week and why?
I mean, it's hard to ignore the white elephant bot in the room. So
it's not black. It's white, is it?
White elephant room. I don't know. It could be black. I don't know. Who cares? Bottom line is the worst story, like the most essential story we did was Microsoft. Again, I think that's more of an excuse for them to cover their own ass based around the investments that they put into OpenAI. I think Elon, he's got so much on his plate as it is, but I mean, if there's anybody that can multitask and do what they need to do, then it's him. And then, again, bringing in the biggest story, I guess, that is shocking and rocking the world at this point. I don't want to jump to conclusions on where all this ends up. I don't want to jump on the train and say that this is the newest, greatest thing, because, we've seen these things come in waves before. And, sometimes the smoke has to clear, the dust has to settle before you start peeking behind the Wizard of Oz curtain and really figuring out if this is a sustainable model or not. All I'm suggesting is that the important takeaway from that story, in conjunction with everything else, is that the technology and the advancements in the technology are happening at a rate that is not slowing down. And we need to stay on top of things. And that's why a show like this is so important, not just for general knowledge, but again, from an efficiency standpoint, how you can properly stay one step ahead of all of these changes and make sure that you're running your business the most efficient way possible.
I'm going to build on that, Mike. I agree, obviously, that the AI arms race story is the most important and definitely the most long-term impact. But to put a little sharper point on what you're saying, I really believe that the one thing these small business entrepreneurs should be doing right now is using these AI tools to build out a personal brand for the leader of the firm. That means your mission, your vision, your values, start sharing your thoughts on things. Because unless you have a relationship with your end customers, they actually know, like, and trust you, you're in trouble. The AI tools are just too efficient. So systemizing, I agree with you, Michelle, 100%. Mike, you're right that we need to use these tools, but I think it starts with, let's use these tools to start building who we are in the world, each of us respectively. All right. Yeah. I want to thank everyone for listening. Special shout out to Jamal and the folks at Bulk Global. We appreciate the support as always. We are here every Wednesday, 4:30 Eastern time. Michelle, I'm not doing the math here. What is it?
It's 9:30 a.m. now, so 8:30 Eastern time in Australia.
So regardless of which side of the equator you are on, you have no excuse. Come join the fun. We are here every week. Our job is to bring you insight into the digital business revolution, which is going to be AI, blockchain, entrepreneurship, everything having to do with those folks who are trying to build a business for themselves and get ahead in the world. We are back next week. We'll tackle whatever comes. We'll have some fallout, I'm sure, from this week's stock market. And it seems like we're starting to see crypto creeping back into the news as well, which is interesting. Final thoughts from my gang here?
Threads.
Have a great
peace, everybody.
Bye.